The subterranean air in the parking garage hung thick with the cloying sweetness of stale coffee and the acrid, metallic tang of burnt rubber. It was a familiar, unwelcome perfume, one I'd breathed in for 3 years straight, working double shifts at Rosie's Diner. A greasy spoon that felt more like a time capsule than a workplace. My feet, encased in their threadbare sneakers, screamed in protest, each ache a testament to another 12-hour day. All I craved was the blessed oblivion of my cramped studio apartment, a silent space where I could finally forget Mrs. Henderson and the 4 decaf refills I'd poured before she'd stiffed me on the tip. A final, petty insult to a long and thankless day. Overhead, the cold fluorescent lights flickered and buzzed with the aggressive hum of angry wasps, casting long, stark shadows that danced like restless spirits around my ancient Honda Civic. Its faded red paint, acquired over countless years and untold dents, gleamed dully under the unforgiving glare. My keys were already clutched in my hand, their cold metal a small, comforting anchor, when my gaze snagged on it. A leviathan of a vehicle, a black SUV, sleek as polished obsidian, massive enough to intimidate a tank, and radiating an aura of undeniable, obscene expense. It was parked so aggressively close to my driver's side door that the gap was non-existent. Not even my perpetually hungry, weak-skipped meal frame could have squeezed through. And hunger lately was a constant companion. Rent was due in 3 days, and my bank account, a barren wasteland of digits, seemed to mock my desperation with a silent, sardonic chuckle. "You've got to be kidding me?" I muttered, the words escaping on a tired sigh as I began a slow, weary circle around my car. The SUV's windows were tinted to an impenetrable, inky black, reflecting my own weary face back at me like a distorted ghost. They offered no glimpse into the interior, no hint of a driver. I couldn't even tell if anyone was inside, which somehow made it worse. My bone-deep exhaustion, a constant companion, began to curdle into a raw irritation, then a simmering anger. 12 hours on my feet, and now this? I didn't have the energy, the patience, or frankly, the time for this inconsiderate display of wealth. I knocked on the driver's window, a tentative rap that felt meek even to my own ears. Nothing. I knocked harder, my knuckles stinging against the cold glass. Still nothing. "Hey!" I called out, my voice thin and reedy, swallowed almost immediately by the concrete cavern of the garage. "You're blocking my car. I need to leave." The only response was a heavy, suffocating silence, the kind that felt less like an absence of sound and more like a deliberate, calculated refusal to acknowledge me. That's when something inside me snapped. It wasn't just the SUV, not just Mrs. Henderson, not just the impending rent. It was the accumulated weight of every condescending customer, every unpaid bill, every forced, gritted-teeth smile I'd offered while being treated like an invisible cog in a forgotten machine. I was so damn tired of being invisible. A surge of primal frustration ignited in my veins, lending a desperate strength to my arm. I hammered on the window with my fist, the sound echoing sharp and brutal in the stillness. "I know you can hear me in there. Move your car, or I swear to God. I'm calling." The door opened. The sudden, silent movement made me stumble back, a gasp catching in my throat. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the sudden surge of adrenaline. A man stepped out. No, that wasn't quite right. He didn't step. He emerged, a dark, formidable presence, like shadow coalescing into human form. He was impossibly tall, easily 6'3", with shoulders so broad they strained the impeccable fabric of his black suit jacket, suggesting not just power, but a contained, dangerous strength. The suit itself, a masterpiece of tailoring, looked like it cost more than my entire year's rent, a stark, visceral reminder of the chasm between our worlds. His dark hair was meticulously styled, yet with a casual, almost careless precision that only truly wealthy men seemed to master. And his face, God! His face was a work of art that shouldn't have been legal. A sharp, chiseled jawline, high cheekbones that caught the cold fluorescent light, and lips that curved into something ambiguous, a subtle blend of amusement and irritation. But it was his eyes that truly froze me in place, Two pools of dark, calculating ice, so cold and devoid of warmth that my survival instinct, long dormant under layers of exhaustion, screamed a silent, frantic warning. They swept over me, slowly, deliberately, taking in every detail. My stained diner uniform, the desperate disarray of my messy ponytail, the complete, utter lack of any conceivable threat I might pose. "You were saying?" His voice was a low, smooth caress, a velvet over steel, with an accent I couldn't quite place, British, perhaps, but with an underlying cadence that hinted at something older, more dangerous. Each word was measured, controlled, a perfectly articulated challenge. Every instinct screamed at me to apologize, to back away, to simply run. My hindbrain was frantically waving red flags, sending up distress signals, begging me to flee this unsettling man. But my anger, fueled by exhaustion and years of being dismissed, was a stubborn, raging beast. I was too tired, too fed up with rich people who believed they owned every inch of the world. "Move your car," I repeated, my voice still shaking slightly, but defiant. "You're blocking me in." I crossed my arms over my chest, a pathetic attempt to project bravery I didn't feel. "I've been working all day, and I just want to go home." A single, elegant eyebrow lifted fractionally on his perfect face. Only then did I notice the second man. He had silently emerged from the passenger side of the SUV, a colossal presence built like a brick wall, with a jagged scar bisecting his left cheek. An earpiece was almost invisible against his temple, making him look like a phantom of security. He stared at me with impassive, dark eyes, as if I were a particularly annoying insect he was debating whether to crush. "Marco?" the suited man said, his voice uninflected, without even glancing back. "Give the lady some space, Marco." The wall with the scar, Marco, took a single, slow step back, but his posture remained rigid, alert. His hand, heavy and solid, rested near his jacket lapel in a way that made my mouth go instantly, completely dry. "Did he have a gun?" Jesus Christ, did he have a gun? "I apologize for the inconvenience," the suited man continued, those unsettling eyes returning to mine, devoid of any genuine remorse. "My driver wasn't paying attention to spacing." "Your driver?" My gaze flicked back to the SUV. Through the windshield, I could now make out a third figure, a shadowy silhouette behind the wheel. Three men. 3 men in an obscenely expensive SUV, with blacked-out windows, in an underground parking garage at nearly 11 at night. The full, terrifying implication of my actions slammed into me. What the hell had I just done? Yes. He took another step closer, and this time I caught his scent. Cedar, rich and woody, intertwined with something darker, more complex, more primal, expensive in a way that didn't just whisper money, but screamed power. The kind of cologne that came in bottles without price tags, custom-blended, unique. "You're very brave, or very foolish. I haven't decided which." "I'm neither," I managed, hating the slight tremor that betrayed my attempted bravado. "I'm just tired." Something flickered across his face then, a fleeting shadow of an expression. Interest, perhaps, or a flash of recognition. His gaze drifted from my face, down my uniform, to linger on my name tag. "Emma," he read aloud, my name sounding foreign yet intimate on his tongue. A soft invasion. "You work at Rosie's Diner." It wasn't a question. The way he said it made my skin prickle with an irrational, escalating unease. "How did you—" I began, but he merely nodded toward my chest, where Rosie's faded, curling script was embroidered in red thread. "The logo on your uniform?" But the cool certainty in his tone, the depth in his dark eyes, suggested he hadn't just noticed it. He'd known. He'd known before he'd opened the door. Had he looked me up in the 3 seconds it took him to emerge from his vehicle? Right. I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly dry. "So, can you move your car or not?" He studied me for another long moment, his head tilted slightly, like a predator assessing prey, or a scientist examining a perplexing specimen. The parking garage, vast moments ago, suddenly felt impossibly small, the air thick and heavy, pressing down on me. Marco shifted his weight, and the subtle movement drew my eyes to the definite, undeniable bulge beneath his jacket. Asterisk, oh God. These weren't just rich jerks. These were dangerous rich jerks. Of course. Asterisk, of course. The man finally said, his voice cutting through the tension. He reached into his pocket and pulled out not one, but two sleek, expensive phones. He checked one briefly, his expression darkening almost imperceptibly at whatever information flashed across the screen, before tucking both devices away with a seamless motion. Marco, move the vehicle. Now, sir? Marco started, his voice a low, gravelly rumble. Now. The single word, sharp and absolute, hung in the air. Marco's jaw tightened, a muscle clenching, but he obeyed instantly, without question. The sheer, terrifying efficiency of his obedience, the absolute nature of it, sent another shiver down my spine. This wasn't merely an employer-employee dynamic. This was something else entirely, a loyalty forged in fire, unyielding and unbreakable. The man remained, standing perfectly still, watching me. I should have bolted. The moment Marco climbed into the SUV, I should have scrambled into my pathetic Civic, locked the doors, and driven away without a single backward glance. But I couldn't move. I was rooted to the spot, unable to tear my gaze away from his dark, unsettling eyes that seemed to bore straight through my exhaustion, my anger, my fear, down to something deeper, something vulnerable and unspoken within me. You should be more careful, he said softly, his voice almost gentle, and for a split second, I detected a flicker of something akin to concern in his tone. Asterisk, no, that couldn't be right. Asterisk, yelling at strangers in underground parking garages. You don't know who you might encounter. I can handle myself. I lied, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. His lips curved into something that might have been a smile, if it had contained even a sliver of warmth. Can you? The black SUV's engine purred to life then, a low, guttural growl, more suited to a predator stalking its prey than a vehicle. It pulled back smoothly, silently, efficiently, leaving my pathetic Honda Civic suddenly visible in all its dented, faded glory. The contrast was almost comically stark. There, he said, gesturing with an open hand. You're free to go. But he didn't move. He didn't step back, didn't create any space between us. Instead, he reached into his jacket. My heart nearly stopped, lodged somewhere in my throat, only to resume its frantic beat when he pulled out a business card. It was black, heavy, obviously expensive, with elegant silver lettering. If you ever need anything, he said, holding it out to me, call this number. I stared at the card as if it might bite me. Why would I need anything from you? You never know. He pressed it into my palm before I could protest, his fingers brushing against my skin. They were surprisingly warm, a stark contrast to the cold calculation in his eyes. The touch lasted a fraction too long, a subtle, lingering contact that sent an unexpected, unsettling tremor all the way up my arm. The world is more dangerous than a girl like you realizes. Asterisk, a girl like me. Asterisk, the condescension in those words, the implicit judgment, should have ignited a fresh wave of fury. But instead, I felt something else, something uncomfortable and unwelcome that made my stomach flutter with a strange, confusing sensation. I looked down at the card again. No name, no company logo, just a singular, elegant phone number etched in silver script. The cardstock was impossibly thick, luxurious, the kind that whispered secrets of old money and undeniable power. When I looked up again, he was already walking away, Marco falling into perfect step beside him. They moved with synchronized precision, two dark, formidable shadows, toward the elevators at the far end of the garage. Before the doors closed, he glanced back, one final time. Even from that distance, across the vast, echoing space, I felt the unsettling weight of his gaze. The elevator doors shut with a soft hiss, and I was alone. I stood there for a full minute, my heart still racing, the business card burning a phantom hole in my palm. Asterisk, what the hell had just happened? Who was he? And why did I feel like I had just made a terrible, terrible mistake? My hands shook violently as I finally managed to unlock my car. I practically threw the card onto the passenger seat as if it were a contaminant, started the engine, and pulled out of the garage faster than I should have. A desperate, frantic escape. But I couldn't stop checking my rearview mirror. Couldn't shake the visceral feeling that I was being watched. Couldn't erase the image of those dark, unreadable eyes, or the way my name had sounded in his mouth, or the strange, terrifying flutter in my chest when his fingers had brushed mine. I drove home on autopilot, my mind obsessively replaying every second of the encounter. The way he had looked at me and not through me, like most people did, but at me truly seeing me. The careful, almost unnerving control in his voice, the instant, absolute obedience from Marco, the two mysterious phones, the impossibly expensive suit, the raw, primal danger that radiated from him like heat from asphalt on a summer day. My cramped studio apartment, usually a haven, had never felt quite so small, quite so vulnerable. I locked the door, threw the deadbolt, and for good measure, shoved my rickety kitchen chair under the doorknob. A pathetic barricade against an unseen threat. The business card sat innocuously on my tiny kitchen table, a square of heavy black stock, both harmless and terrifying. I should throw it away. I should forget this ever happened. Instead, compelled by a morbid curiosity I couldn't explain, I picked it up, running my thumb over the elegant silver numbers. No name, no company, just a phone number that probably led to something I didn't want to know about. I thought about the gun-shaped bulge under Marco's jacket, about the cold calculation in those dark eyes, about the way the man had said, "You never know," like he knew something I didn't, something vast and dark and inescapable. My phone buzzed, making me jump, the sound unnaturally loud in the silent apartment. Just a text from my coworker, Sarah, asking if I wanted to pick up an extra shift tomorrow. I started to type a response, then paused. Through my apartment's single, grimy window, I could see the street below. And there it was, a black SUV. The same model, the same impossibly dark-tinted windows. My blood ran cold, a glacial river through my veins. Couldn't be the same one, could it? This was a big city. There were hundreds, thousands of black SUVs. I was being paranoid. I had to be paranoid. But as I watched, transfixed, the driver's side window rolled down just an inch. Not enough to see inside. Not enough to confirm my fears. Just enough to let me know someone was there. Watching. The business card in my hand seemed to pulse. The silver numbers catching the dim light from my kitchen lamp like tiny, malevolent beacons. I grabbed my phone, my fingers hovering over the keypad, trembling. Should I call the police? And tell them what? That a man had blocked my car and given me his phone number? That now I thought he was outside my apartment? They'd think I was crazy. Maybe I was crazy. I looked at the card again, then at the SUV, then back at the card, trapped in a horrifying loop. What the hell had I gotten myself into? I didn't sleep. How could I? Knowing that sleek black beast was parked outside, a silent sentinel in the pre-dawn darkness. Every creak of the old building, every distant siren, every shadow that danced across my grimy window sent my heart into a frantic, terrified sprint. I lay in bed fully clothed, clutching my phone like a lifeline. The business card on my nightstand, a loaded gun aimed squarely at my precarious sense of normalcy. At 4:47 a.m., I finally gave up on the futile attempt at sleep. My shift at Rosie's started at 6 o'clock anyway. I showered quickly, the weak water pressure from the ancient pipes doing nothing to wash away the insidious anxiety clinging to my skin. When I finally peeked through the curtains, the SUV was gone. A wave of complicated emotions washed over me. Relief, potent and dizzying, warring with a strange, unsettling disappointment. Had I imagined it all? Was I truly losing my mind? The morning air was crisp and biting as I walked the 6 blocks to the diner, my breath forming small, ephemeral clouds in the pre-dawn darkness. I kept checking over my shoulder, a frantic, almost compulsive act. Every distant sound, every rustle of leaves, every imagined shift in the shadows made me flinch. I kept thinking I heard footsteps that weren't there, a phantom echo of my fear. The city was just beginning to stir, delivery trucks rumbling past, their diesel engines grumbling. The homeless man who slept in the doorway of the closed bookstore began to stir, a slow, unhurried awakening. The comforting, yeasty smell of fresh bread wafted from the bakery 2 streets over. Normal. Everything felt excruciatingly, terrifyingly normal. Rosie's diner was a chrome and vinyl relic from the 50s. A greasy spoon stubbornly clinging to its faded glory. All sticky red leather booths, worn black and white checkered floors, and the perpetual scent of coffee and sizzling bacon. I'd worked there since dropping out of community college 3 years ago when my mom got sick. The cancer had been a relentless, merciless thief. It had taken everything. Her life, our meager savings, and with it, any chance I had of becoming something more than a waitress who perpetually smelled like stale coffee and broken dreams. "You look like hell, Emma," Sarah said, her voice bright and chipper. When I pushed through the employee entrance, she was already in her uniform, her dark hair pulled back in a neat, efficient bun that made my own messy ponytail feel even more pathetic. "Rough night?" I mumbled, tying on my apron, careful to avoid her direct gaze. Couldn't sleep. How could I explain what had happened? How could I articulate the unsettling encounter with a man so dangerous, so expensive, who had looked at me like I was something both precious and terrifying all at once? "Well, coffee's fresh, and we've got a new customer in booth 7 who specifically asked for you." My head snapped up, my eyes wide. "What?" "Yeah, weird, right? He came in about 20 minutes ago. Real fancy looking. Asked which server was named Emma?" Sarah waggled her eyebrows suggestively, a playful glint in her eyes. "Secret admirer, maybe?" My mouth went instantly dry, my heart sinking with a sudden, dreadful premonition. "What does he look like?" "Tall, dark, gorgeous. Like he walked straight out of a cologne commercial." "Why, you know him?" I grabbed the industrial-sized coffee pot, my hands shaking so violently the hot liquid sloshed precariously. "I'll take booth 7. "Lucky bitch," Sarah muttered, but she was smiling, oblivious to the icy dread coiling in my stomach. I forced myself to walk slowly, professionally, even though every instinct screamed at me to drop the coffee pot and run, to simply disappear. Booth 7 was nestled in the back corner, a favored spot for regulars seeking a semblance of privacy. And there he was. He had removed his suit jacket, revealing a crisp white shirt with the sleeves meticulously rolled up to his forearms. Strong forearms, I noticed unwillingly, the muscles subtly defined, dusted with fine dark hair, and what looked like the intriguing edge of a tattoo peeking out from under the fabric. His hair was slightly less perfect than last night, a few dark strands falling across his forehead in a way that made him look younger, softer, almost human, almost. Those dark, piercing eyes found mine immediately, and a strange, unwelcome jolt, an electric current of awareness, shot straight through my stomach. "Good morning, Emma." He said my name like he'd been practicing it, rolling the syllables around in his mouth, savoring the taste of it. "What are you doing here?" The words came out sharper, more accusatory than I intended, making an elderly couple in the booth 2 over glance up from their scrambled eggs. He merely gestured to the empty seat across from him, a subtle, imperious command. "Having breakfast. Please sit." "I'm working." "Then work. Bring me coffee. Black, no sugar." He leaned back against the faded red vinyl, completely at ease, like he owned the entire diner, the whole damn street. Maybe he did. How would I even know? "And whatever you recommend." "The pancakes are good." My hand tightened around the coffee pot, my knuckles white. "How did you know I worked mornings?" "I didn't." He said it casually, as if admitting to staking out a diner before dawn was perfectly normal. "I've been here since 5. Waited to see if you'd show up. Lucky guess on the shift. * 3 hours. * He'd been waiting for 3 hours. That's... I started to say something, then stopped. The words, creepy, obsessive, terrifying *, all stuck in my throat. weighted down by the unnerving intensity of his gaze. Thorough, he finished for me, a faint, knowing smile playing on his lips. I'm thorough in everything I do, Emma. The way he said my name then, with that quiet assertion of control, sent a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with something I adamantly refused to acknowledge. I poured his coffee, my hands trembling only slightly, the dark liquid swirling into the mug. I'll put your order in. His fingers caught my wrist then, a gentle but firm grip, unexpectedly warm against my pulse point. Sit with me. 5 minutes. I can't. I'm working. I'll make it worth your while. He released my wrist, but not before pulling out his wallet, extracting several crisp, brand new $100 bills, and laying them on the table. For your time. I stared at the money. That was more than I made in a week. More than enough to cover rent and still have some leftover for groceries that weren't ramen noodles. I don't want your money, I lied, the words hollow and unconvincing. Everyone wants money, Emma, he countered, his voice smooth and cynical. The only question is what they're willing to do for it. He pushed the bills closer to me across the table. I'm only asking you to sit, to talk. That's hardly a sin. My manager, Pete, was watching from behind the counter, a frown etched on his face. The morning rush would start soon. I had tables to prep, coffee to brew, a life to pretend was normal, even though nothing felt normal anymore. But I sat. 5 minutes, I said firmly, my voice betraying none of the internal turmoil. 5 minutes. He smiled then, a real smile, not the cold, enigmatic curve of lips from last night. It utterly transformed his face, chasing away the shadows of danger and making him look less like an incarnate threat and more like a man who found genuine, unapologetic pleasure in getting exactly what he wanted. Thank you. Why are you here? Really? He took a slow sip of coffee, considering me over the rim of the cup, his dark eyes unwavering. You interest me. I'm not interesting. I'm a waitress who drives a car held together by duct tape and prayers. You stood up to me last night. Do you have any idea how rare that is? He set down his cup, leaning forward slightly. The morning light streaming through the diner window caught the sharp angles of his face, highlighting a small, barely perceptible scar near his left temple that I hadn't noticed before. Most people take one look at me and understand. They see what I am. But you were angry about your parking space. You were magnificent. The word hung in the air between us, intimate and dangerous, so small and fierce, banging on my window like you could actually hurt me. I didn't know who you were, I retorted. The thought of Marco's gun, the instant, absolute obedience of everyone around him, the expensive suits and multiple phones flashing through my mind. If I had, I would have walked away. Exactly. He leaned back again, satisfied, as if I had just perfectly proven his point. Which is why you're interesting. You see me as a person, not a position. What position is that? His smile turned enigmatic again, a shadow of the warmth receding. Does it matter? Yes. I met his eyes directly, forcing myself not to look away, even though it felt like staring into the sun, into something ancient and all-consuming. If you're going to show up at my workplace and throw money at me, I think I deserve to know who you are. Dangerous. He said it simply, matter-of-factly, a stark, brutal truth. I'm someone dangerous, Emma. Someone you should stay far away from. Then why are you here? Because I can't seem to help myself. The admission seemed to surprise him as much as it surprised me. He ran a hand through his dark hair, disrupting those perfect strands further, a rare gesture of vulnerability. I went home last night fully intending to forget about the tired girl in the parking garage. But I couldn't. I kept thinking about the way you looked at me, not with fear, not with calculation, but with honest anger because I'd inconvenienced you. Most people would find that annoying, not attractive. He paused, his dark eyes locking onto mine. I'm not most people. He picked up one of the $100 bills, holding it up to the light, the crisp paper rustling softly. And I don't think you are either, despite what you tell yourself. You're drowning here, aren't you? Working yourself to exhaustion for scraps. When was the last time you did something just because you wanted to? The question hit too close to home, striking a raw nerve I hadn't known was still so tender. I stood abruptly, the red vinyl booth squeaking loudly under me, a mournful sound that echoed my own distress. "My 5 minutes are up, Emma," I said, my voice rising. "What do you want from me?" The words came out louder than I intended, sharp with a desperation I couldn't conceal. Pete was definitely watching now, his head tilted. Sarah had stopped wiping down tables, her gaze fixed on us, a silent, gaping witness. "Because this, whatever this is, I can't. I don't know what game you're playing, but I'm not a toy." Something dark flashed across his face then, a fleeting shadow of anger, or perhaps something colder. He stood too, effortlessly rising to his full, formidable height. And even though we were in a public diner in broad daylight, I felt suddenly, acutely aware of how much bigger he was, how much latent power coiled within that lean, dangerous frame. "I don't play games," he said, his voice low, controlled, but I heard the razor-sharp edge beneath the smooth surface. "And I don't treat people like toys. What I want." He stopped, his jaw tightening, as if fighting some internal battle, a private war raging just beneath the surface of his composure. "What I want is to know you, to understand why I can't stop thinking about you. You don't even know me. Then let me." He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell that intoxicating cedar and smoke scent again, close enough to see the minute, almost invisible flecks of gold in the dark depths of his eyes. "Have dinner with me. One dinner. If you hate every second of it, I'll disappear. You'll never see me again." He paused, his gaze tracing the contours of my face, memorizing every detail. "And if I say no, then I'll disappear anyway. But I don't think you will." "Why not?" I challenged, my voice a mere whisper. He reached out slowly, deliberately, giving me ample time to pull away. His fingers, warm and gentle, tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear, his thumb brushing against my cheek for just a heartbeat, a fleeting touch that ignited a spark deep within me. "Because you're just as curious as I am. Because your life is suffocating you, Emma, and I'm offering air. Because when I touched your wrist last night, your pulse jumped." I hated that he was right, hated that some traitorous, long-dormant part of me desperately wanted to say yes. Wanted to see what would happen if I took this dangerous man's hand and let him pull me into whatever dark, thrilling world he inhabited. "I don't even know your name," I whispered, the words barely audible. He smiled then, that devastating, transformative smile that utterly changed his face, stripping away the danger to reveal something intensely alluring. "Lucian. My name is Lucian." "Lucian," I repeated, testing the name, letting it roll off my tongue, to fit him perfectly. Elegant and dangerous like the man himself. "Say it again." His thumb brushed my cheekbone once more, a possessive, intimate gesture. "I like how it sounds in your voice." The bell above the diner door chimed then, a mundane sound that shattered the fragile intimacy of the moment. Marco walked in, and the entire atmosphere shifted, a palpable change in the air, from charged potential to immediate, coiled tension. He scanned the room with those predatory eyes, assessing threats, calculating exits, his hand already resting inside his jacket, on the gun I was now certain he carried. Lucian dropped his hand from my face immediately, stepping back to put a more appropriate distance between us, but his dark eyes never left mine, a silent, unwavering connection. "Sir," Marco said quietly, his voice a low rumble. "We need to go. Antonio called. There's a situation." Something dangerous flickered across Lucian's expression, a cold, hard glint that made Marco tense, made the elderly couple suddenly fascinated with their check, made the hairs on my arms stand on end. "I see." Lucian's voice had gone cold again, all the warmth from moments before evaporating like mist in the harsh morning light. He was back to being the man from the parking garage, controlled, calculating, lethal. "Tell him I'm on my way." Marco nodded, a silent, efficient movement, and retreated to wait by the door, but his eyes kept sweeping the diner, kept coming back to me, lingering like I was a threat that needed monitoring. Lucian picked up his suit jacket, shrugging it on with practiced ease. The transformation was complete. The almost human man who'd smiled at me was gone, replaced by someone who commanded rooms just by existing in them. A formidable, unyielding presence. He laid the $100 bills on the table, then added several more, a thick stack of green. For the coffee I won't be drinking, and for your time. I told you I don't want. Take it, Emma. Pride doesn't pay rent. He started to walk away, then paused, turning back, his dark eyes meeting mine one last time. Dinner tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. I'll pick you up. I didn't say yes. You didn't say no. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Reach his eyes anymore. A mask of practiced indifference settling over features that were anything but. I'll see you tomorrow, Emma, he murmured, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through the diner's mundane hum. And then, as if a spell had been broken, he was gone. Marco, ever the silent shadow, fell into step beside him, their synchronized departure a testament to countless shared exits. They didn't bother with the door. Instead, they exited through the shattered window, a casual disregard for property that spoke volumes. I watched them, a phantom ache in my chest, as they climbed back into the familiar black behemoth, the same sleek SUV from last night, a silent, predatory beast. It pulled away from the curb with a smooth, almost unnerving grace, melting into the pre-dawn symphony of morning traffic, leaving only the ghost of its presence behind. I stood there amidst the lingering scent of coffee and sizzling bacon, the cacophony of the awakening diner a distant buzz. In my trembling hands, I clutched a stack of crisp $100 bills, an obscene amount of money for a Tuesday morning, far more than any meal I'd ever served. It felt heavy, not just with its monetary weight, but with the unspoken implications, a binding contract I had never explicitly agreed to, yet somehow felt irrevocably signed. Sarah, my usually unflappable colleague, appeared at my elbow, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and bewilderment. Holy... Who was that? She gasped, her voice barely a whisper. I managed a weak shrug, the lie a half-truth that felt both insufficient and entirely necessary. I have no idea, I mumbled, and it was mostly true. I knew his name Lucian, knew he was dangerous, a predator cloaked in designer suits, knew he had the power to ignite a wildfire in my veins, making my heart gallop in ways that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with a terrifying, exhilarating pull. But the true essence of him? Who he really was, what he truly wanted, why, out of all the people in the sprawling city, he had chosen me. Those answers remained tantalizingly out of reach, shrouded in shadow and mystery. My hands, still slightly shaking, began to count the money. $800. Fortune. It was more than my entire month's rent. More than I'd seen gathered in one place since the last of Mom's meager life insurance payout had dissolved into bills and basic necessities. Pete's booming voice sliced through my days, calling my name, snapping me back to the harsh reality of my life. Tables were filling up, the morning rush beginning to swell around me, a relentless tide demanding my return to the familiar rhythm of normality. But as I carefully folded the bills and slipped them into the hidden pocket of my worn apron, as I forced the practiced, weary smile back onto my face and grabbed the lukewarm coffee pot, I knew, with a chilling certainty, that normal was over. Lucian had shattered it irrevocably. And the most unsettling part, the truly terrifying, exhilarating secret I barely dared to acknowledge, was that I was already counting the hours, already looking forward to tomorrow night with a breathless anticipation that defied all logic and self-preservation. I spent the entirety of the next day shrouded in a cloud of self-doubt and cynical conviction. He wouldn't show up. Why would he? Men like Lucian, men forged from danger, cloaked in wealth, radiating a power that could command armies with a single glance, didn't actually follow through on dinner invitations extended to lowly diner waitresses. The money, I reasoned, was simply his way of apologizing, a silent atonement for whatever bizarre, fleeting impulse had made him seek me out in the first place. By now, I imagined he'd probably forgotten I even existed, his mind already on more important conquests, more strategic maneuvers. That's what I told myself, a mantra against a rising tide of hope, as I reluctantly peeled 2 of those crisp $100 bills from the stack to pay my perpetually demanding landlord. That's what I whispered to myself as I splurged on actual groceries for the first time in months, filling my sparse pantry with more than instant noodles and stale bread. And that's what I desperately tried to believe as I stood before my pathetic, cramped closet at precisely 6:30 that evening, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I was trying, in vain, to find something, anything, even remotely suitable for dinner with a man whose custom-tailored suits were undoubtedly worth more than my entire life's possessions, including my ancient, sputtering car. I eventually settled on a simple black dress, the same one I'd worn to Mom's funeral 3 long, agonizing years ago. It was the only remotely nice thing I possessed, a somber relic that now hung a bit too loose on my frame. I'd lost weight I couldn't afford to lose, the relentless grind of working double shifts and skipping meals carving away at my already slender figure. The fabric, once a symbol of mourning, now seemed to whisper of grief and desperation, a stark reminder of the life I'd left behind. But it would have to do. My hands, still unsteady, trembled as I applied mascara, my only makeup besides a cheap drugstore lipstick that was undoubtedly long expired. I looked in the chipped mirror, pale, tired, utterly ordinary. What did Lucian truly see when his dark, penetrating gaze fell upon me? What could someone of his caliber, his power, possibly want from someone like me? At 6:58, a deep, resonant rumble vibrated through the floorboards of my 4th-story apartment. It wasn't the familiar, rough cough of a normal car idling below, but a smooth, predatory purr, a sound that made my stomach clench with a mixture of fear and something dangerously akin to excitement. I rushed to the window, pulling aside the worn curtain, and there it was. A different SUV this time, sleek and metallic silver instead of black, but just as expensive, just as undeniably intimidating. A silent beast awaiting its prey. Lucian emerged from the back passenger door, a vision of effortless power. He wore another suit, this one a deep charcoal gray that seemed to absorb the fading early evening light, making its fabric appear almost liquid. His dark hair was meticulously styled back, revealing the sharp, aristocratic planes of his face, the strong jawline, the piercing intensity of his gaze. And even from my distant window, for floors up, I could feel the palpable force of his dark eyes as he swept them over my building, a silent claim. Marco, his face a familiar mask of stoic vigilance, climbed out from the driver's seat, surveying the street with the practiced weariness of a seasoned guard. Then, a third man, whom I didn't recognize, emerged from the front passenger side. Younger than Marco, perhaps in his late 20s, but built with the same formidable solidity, all coiled muscle and unwavering alertness. My intercom buzzed, a shrill, intrusive sound that made me jump. This was madness. Utter, complete, glorious insanity. I should pretend I wasn't home. Should let him stand there on the grimy sidewalk until he gave up, frustrated, and left, retreating back to his shadowy world. I should protect myself from whatever this was, from the inevitable fallout of stepping into his orbit. Instead, my hand, as if acting independently of my will, reached out and pressed the button. "Hello, Emma," even distorted through the tiny, tinny speaker. His voice was a deep, resonant caress that sent shivers, not of fear but of an undeniable thrill, tracing a path down my spine. "I'm here. I can see that," I managed, my voice a thin thread. I pressed my forehead against the cool, rough plaster of the wall, closing my eyes, willing myself to think, to rationalize. "Lucian, I don't think." "Don't think." He cut me off, his voice softening, a surprising gentleness in its command. "Just calm down, please." That please shouldn't have affected me. It was just a word, an ordinary, polite request. But the way he said it, like it cost him something profound, like he wasn't accustomed to asking, only commanding, pierced through my carefully constructed defenses. I grabbed my thin, threadbare coat, woefully inadequate for the cooling evening air, but all I had, and began my descent. The building's front door, a heavy, chipped slab of wood, stuck as it always did, a stubborn testament to the decay of my meager existence. I had to brace my shoulder against it, shoving with all my might, nearly stumbling onto the uneven sidewalk in my only pair of heels, a precarious teetering act. Lucian's hand shot out, impossibly fast, catching my elbow with a firm, possessive grip that instantly steadied me. "Careful," he murmured, his voice a low thrum against the evening air. He didn't let go, even after I had fully regained my balance, his fingers a warm, strong anchor on my arm. "The door sticks," I said. A stupid, useless observation, hyper-aware of his hand still on my arm, the radiating heat of his body shockingly close to mine. I was acutely aware, too, of the way Marco and the other silent sentinel watched us from their vantage points, their expressions unreadable like stone. "We'll have to fix that," Lucian stated, not as a suggestion, but as an undeniable fact, as if he'd already mentally added my broken door to his extensive list of problems to be efficiently solved. "It's not your building," I blurted out, a desperate attempt to assert some semblance of independence. A faint, almost imperceptible smile played on his lips. "Not yet." He then seemed to truly look at me for the first time, his dark eyes traveling slowly, deliberately, from my flushed face, down the length of my simple black dress, and back up again, lingering. Something heated, intensely primal, flickered deep within their depths. "You look beautiful." I almost laughed, a dry, humorless sound that caught in my throat. Beautiful. Beautiful was Sarah, with her perfectly styled hair and curves in all the right places, a vision of effortless glamour. Beautiful was the kind of woman men like Lucian probably dated, supermodels, actresses, heiresses, women accustomed to glittering ballrooms and whispered admiration. I was just a tired waitress, wearing a funeral dress and cheap mascara. "You don't have to lie," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I don't lie," he countered, his voice resonating with such conviction that I almost believed him. "And you are beautiful, Emma, especially when you blush like that." I hadn't even realized I was blushing until he pointed it out, which, of course, only made the heat creep further up my neck. "Can we just go?" I asked, suddenly desperate to escape the intense scrutiny, the unsettling intimacy. "Of course." He guided me toward the silver SUV, his hand shifting from my elbow to the small of my back, a light, guiding touch that still managed to feel proprietorial. Marco had already opened the rear door, standing beside it with the still, watchful presence of a sentinel. "After you." The interior of the SUV enveloped me in a rich, intoxicating scent, a blend of expensive leather and, unmistakably, money. The seats were upholstered in cream-colored leather, pristine, unmarked, probably worth more than everything I owned combined. I slid across the smooth, cool surface and Lucian followed, settling beside me, closer than strictly necessary, his warmth a palpable presence. Marco closed the door with a soft, decisive thunk, sealing us in, separating us from the fading light of the outside world. The younger man, the one I hadn't recognized, was already in the driver's seat. He met my eyes briefly in the rearview mirror, a flicker of something unreadable in his gaze before he looked away, his jaw tight, muscles working beneath the skin. "This is Victor," Lucian said, nodding toward the driver. "He'll be taking us to the restaurant. Marco will follow in the other vehicle." "Why do you need two cars?" The question slipped out before I could properly censor myself, a naive curiosity. Lucian's expression remained impassive, betraying nothing, but something subtle, a fleeting shadow, flickered deep behind his dark eyes. "Security." "Security from what?" I pressed, a strange blend of unease and fascination stirring within me. His gaze intensified. "From people who would hurt me, Emma, or take what's mine." His hand, cool and strong, found mine on the plush leather seat between us, his fingers intertwining with mine before I could even contemplate pulling away. A silent, powerful claim. "The world I live in isn't safe, Emma. I need to be careful." "Then why bring me into it?" My voice came out smaller, more vulnerable than I intended, laced with a tremor of genuine fear. Why risk making me a target just by being seen with you? A slow, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips, a dangerous curve. Because some risks are worth taking. He lifted our joined hands, bringing them to his lips, pressing a soft, lingering kiss to my knuckles that made my breath catch in my throat. And because anyone who tried to hurt you, he continued, his voice dropping to a low, chilling register, would regret it very, very much. The cold, ruthless promise in his voice should have sent a jolt of terror through me, a desperate urge to flee. Instead, it sent a strange, dark thrill through my entire body, a sensation I didn't want to examine too closely. Victor pulled into the bustling city traffic with a smooth, almost imperceptible precision, Marco's black SUV falling in seamlessly behind us, a silent, ever-present guardian. The kaleidoscope of city lights blurred past the tinted windows as we drove, leaving behind the familiar decay of my rundown neighborhood with its boarded-up shops and angry, graffitied walls. We moved inexorably toward the glittering, pulsating heart of downtown, where people walked with an effortless arrogance, their clothes costing more than my monthly salary, their lives a universe away from mine. Where are we going? I asked, the sheer opulence of our surroundings making me feel increasingly out of place. Bianchi's. I'd heard of Bianchi's. Everyone had. It was a name whispered with reverence and awe, a culinary legend, the kind of restaurant that required reservations months in advance, where celebrities and politicians brokered deals over Michelin-starred cuisine, where a single meal could cost more than I made in a week. The kind of place that would take one disdainful look at my humble funeral dress and broken heels and politely, but firmly ask me to leave. I can't go there, I blurted out, a wave of cold panic rising in my chest, threatening to engulf me. I'm not dressed for. You're with me. Lucian's thumb stroked across my knuckles, a soothing yet possessive gesture that both calmed and claimed. That's all that matters. Easy for you to say, I retorted, the bitterness of years of struggle seeping into my voice. You belong in places like that. I belong nowhere, he countered, his words sharp, edged with something dark and deeply personal that resonated with my own hidden pain. I've spent my entire life fighting for every scrap of respect, every inch of territory. The only difference between you and me, Emma, is that I learned to look the part. I studied his profile in the dim interior light, the strong, aquiline nose, the sharp, unyielding jawline, the subtle, almost cruel curve of his lips that somehow also hinted at a deep, buried tenderness. Who are you, really? I asked, a desperate need for understanding clawing at me. What do you do? Does it matter? His voice was even guarded. Yes, I insisted, my gaze unwavering. Yes, because I have a feeling if I Google your name, I won't like what I find. He turned to face me fully then, his dark eyes, usually so guarded, now intense and direct in the dim, intimate space. Then don't Google it. Don't ask questions you don't want answers to, Emma. Just let tonight be what it is. Two people having dinner. That's not what this is, I countered, the words leaving my lips before I could think. No, he agreed softly, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. It's not, but we can pretend, can't we? Just for a few hours. The SUV pulled up in front of Bianchi's, a magnificent, elegant building glowing with warm light that spilled from its tall, arched windows. A doorman in a crisp, burgundy uniform stood at attention, his posture impeccable. People in exquisite evening wear ascended the wide, polished stone steps, their laughter and cultured voices a soft murmur against the hum of the city. My panic, momentarily quelled, spiked again, sharper this time like a blade. Lucian, I really can't. You can? He insisted, squeezing my hand. A silent challenge and encouragement. You're stronger than you think, Emma. Braver. You proved that in the parking garage. That was different, I argued, my voice tight. I was angry, not thinking clearly. Exactly, he said, his smile enigmatic. You weren't thinking about status or money or who I might be. You were just you. That's what I want tonight, Emma. Just you being yourself. Victor had already exited the vehicle and opened my door. A silent invitation. Across the street, Marco's black SUV was parked, and I could see his silhouette through the windshield. His hand, no doubt, resting on whatever weapon he habitually carried. I had two stark choices. Stay in the car, a shivering coward, and retreat to the meager comfort of my familiar misery, or take Lucian's offered hand and step into a world that screamed I didn't belong, a world that threatened to swallow me whole. I took his hand. The evening air was cooler now, carrying the faint, intoxicating scent of expensive perfume mingling with the sharper tang of car exhaust. Lucian kept his fingers laced with mine, a reassuring anchor as we ascended the grand stone steps. The doorman, an older, distinguished gentleman with surprisingly kind eyes, held open the heavy glass door with a practiced, deferential smile. "Good evening, Mr. Volkov. So that was his last name. Lucian Volkov. The name itself felt powerful, ancient, resonating with a faint, disturbing echo in my memory. Something I'd heard on the news, perhaps, or overheard in hushed whispers at the diner. But before I could grasp at the elusive thread of recollection, we were inside. The restaurant was even more breathtaking than I had imagined. Crystal chandeliers, sparkling like captured starlight, cast a warm, golden glow over crisp white tablecloths and gleaming silverware that reflected the light like polished jewels. The gentle murmur of cultured conversation mingled with the soft, elegant strains of classical music played by a discreet string quartet. Every person in the opulent room looked as if they'd stepped directly from the pages of a high-fashion magazine. Effortlessly elegant, perfectly coiffed. And then, as one, they all turned to look at us, or rather, at Lucian. I felt it immediately, a palpable shift in the atmosphere, a sudden, almost reverent hush. Conversations paused mid-sentence. Forks clinked against plates and fell silent. The maitre d', a man whose practiced smile rarely wavered, rushed forward, his expression of welcome not quite reaching the depths of his eyes. "Mr. Volkov, how wonderful to see you again. Your table is ready." "Thank you, Antonio." Lucian's hand tightened subtly on mine, a comforting squeeze that grounded me, as he guided me through the suddenly quiet room. People watched us pass, their gazes like physical touches. I caught fragments of whispers, saw eyes lingering on me with a mixture of curiosity, calculation, and sometimes, a flash of something that looked like pity. An older woman, dripping in diamonds, clutched her husband's arm, leaning close to whisper something that made his face visibly pale. What had I walked into? This was more than just a fancy dinner. This was a spectacle, a declaration. Our table was nestled in a private alcove at the very back of the restaurant, secluded and intimate, yet strategically positioned with a clear, panoramic view of both the entrance and exits. Lucian pulled out my chair himself, his hands brushing lightly against my shoulders as he helped me sit, a gesture of old-world chivalry utterly at odds with the modern danger that clung to him. Once he had taken the seat directly across from me, I leaned forward, my voice a whisper. "You're making people nervous." "I always do," he replied, his tone even unconcerned. He picked up the elaborate wine list, scanning it with unpracticed ease, as if deciphering ancient hieroglyphs. "They'll settle down in a moment." "Why?" I pressed, unable to shake the unsettling feeling. "Who do they think you are?" He set down the wine list, his dark eyes meeting mine directly, intensely. "They know exactly who I am, Emma. The question is whether you're ready to know." My mouth went dry, a sudden, unbidden tremor of fear running through me. "Tell me," I urged, my voice barely audible. He signaled to a hovering waiter, a discreet nod. "After dinner. For now, let's just enjoy the evening. Have you ever had osso buco?" "I don't even know what that is," I confessed, a small, embarrassed smile touching my lips. His smile was genuine, warm, illuminating his face in a way that made him look younger, less formidable. "Then you're in for a treat." The next hour passed in a surreal haze, a dreamlike sequence of exquisite tastes and hushed conversations. Lucian ordered in flawless Italian, the words rolling off his tongue like rich, melodic music. The food that arrived at our table was nothing short of art on a plate, delicate, impossibly expensive, a universe away from the greasy diner fare I served every single day. He watched me as I tasted everything, seeming to derive genuine pleasure from my reactions, a rare, unvarnished delight. "You're not eating much," I observed, noting his own plate sat mostly untouched while he had encouraged me to sample every exquisite dish. "I'm enjoying watching you," he confessed, leaning back in his chair, a wine glass dangling casually from his long fingers. "You experience things so fully, like that first bite of the risotto." Your whole face just lit up. "It's good risotto?" I defended, feeling a flush creep up my neck. "It's adequate risotto," he corrected, a hint of amusement in his eyes. "But seeing you enjoy it makes it extraordinary." He set down his glass, then reached across the gleaming table to take my hand again, his touch firm, warm. "Tell me about yourself, Emma. The real things, not just the surface details." "There's not much to tell," I began, my voice hesitant, almost defensive. "I work at a diner. I live alone. I stopped, the word mom hovering unspoken on my tongue. I didn't want to mention her, didn't want to expose that raw, still aching wound to this dangerous, mesmerizing stranger. "You what?" His thumb traced slow, mesmerizing circles on my palm, a silent encouragement. "I used to want things," I admitted quietly, the words feeling foreign, distant. "College, a real career, a life that was more than just surviving. But then my mom got sick and everything else just stopped matching." My voice faltered, the memories sharp and painful. "She passed away." It wasn't a question, but a quiet statement of understanding. 3 years ago. Cancer." I pulled my hand back, reaching for my water glass, needing something, anything, to do with my suddenly restless hands. "After she died, I just couldn't seem to start again. It was easier to keep working, keep moving, than to face the fact that all my dreams died with her." Lucian was quiet for a long, unsettling moment, his dark eyes studying me with an intensity that made me want to squirm, to hide. "You're drowning," he finally said, slowly, quietly, his voice a soft diagnosis. "But drowning nonetheless." "Maybe," I conceded, meeting his gaze directly. "And you're throwing me a rope that's probably attached to an anchor." He laughed then, a real, genuine laugh that transformed his face, stripping away layers of danger and making him look unexpectedly younger, almost boyish. "Probably. But at least it would be a beautiful way to drown." "That's not funny?" I said, a faint smile playing on my lips despite myself. "No, it's not." His expression sobered, the laughter fading as quickly as it had come. "Emma, I want to be honest with you. More honest than I've been with anyone in years." My heart began to race, a frantic drumbeat against my ribs. "Okay," I whispered, bracing myself. "I'm not a good man. The things I do, the life I live, it's not legal, it's not moral, and it's certainly not safe." He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a low, intimate rumble that vibrated through me. "But from the moment you banged on my car window, Emma, I haven't been able to think about anything else. You've gotten under my skin in a way that's dangerous for both of us." "What are you saying?" My breath hitched, caught in my throat. "I'm saying that I want you, Emma. Want to know you, protect you, keep you safe from the world that's been grinding you down." His hand found mine again across the table, his grip almost painful in its intensity, a desperate, undeniable claim. "I'm saying that I'm selfish enough to pursue this, even though I shouldn't. Even though you deserve someone better, someone cleaner. But I'm also saying that if you walk away right now, I'll let you go. I'll disappear from your life, leave you in peace. The choice is yours. I should have chosen to walk away." Every rational cell in my body screamed at me to recognize the frantic, blood-red flags waving wildly in my peripheral vision. I should have understood, with every fiber of my being, that men like Lucian Volov, men who required armed security details and made entire restaurant patrons nervous with a single glance, were nothing but trouble, a storm brewing on the horizon. But I was so tired of being alone, so tired of merely surviving instead of truly living, so tired of an invisible existence punctuated only by aching feet and insufficient tips. And when he looked at me with those dark, intense eyes, luminous with a raw, undeniable desire, I felt seen in a way I hadn't felt since Mom died, a profound recognition that pierced through years of isolation. I don't want to walk away, I heard myself say, the words a breathless confession, a surrender. Something fierce and triumphant flashed across his face, a raw, almost predatory exultation. You're sure? No, I admitted, meeting his gaze. But I'm doing it anyway. He stood abruptly, tossing a thick wad of cash onto the table. Far more than the meal could have possibly cost. I was certain, enough to cover a dozen more. Then let's get out of here. What? I stammered, startled. But we haven't even had dessert. I can't wait another second to do this. He pulled me to my feet, and before I could even formulate the question of what this was, his hands framed my face, cupping my jaw with a tender ferocity, and his lips were on mine. The kiss was fierce, claiming, desperate. His mouth moved against mine with a hunger that stole my breath, his fingers tangling roughly in my hair, pulling me closer still. I gasped against his lips, and he took full advantage, deepening the kiss until my knees went weak, threatening to buckle beneath me. Around us, I dimly registered the restaurant falling silent, a collective gasp, the hushed whispers, the faint, distant clink of dropped silverware. I didn't care, my hands fisted in his expensive suit jacket, pulling him tighter, kissing him back with an abandon, a wild, untamed passion I didn't recognize in myself. He tasted of rich, dark wine and an intoxicating blend of danger and promises I knew, deep down, I shouldn't believe. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard, our chests heaving. His eyes had gone almost black, pupils blown wide with unbridled desire. Mine, he murmured against my lips, a guttural growl of possession. Say it. I should have protested, should have reminded him that I wasn't an object to be claimed, a prize to be won. But the words slipped out anyway, breathless and true, a raw, undeniable admission. Yours. The ride back was charged with an electric current, making the air inside the luxurious SUV feel thick, heavy, almost suffocating with unspoken desires. Lucian kept his hand firmly on my thigh, possessive and warm through the thin fabric of my funeral dress. Every time Victor smoothly took a turn, I slid imperceptibly closer to Lucian, and he'd tighten his grip, a silent command keeping me exactly where he wanted me. Where are we going? I asked, watching the unfamiliar, glittering streets blur past the tinted window. This was definitely not the route back to my dingy apartment. My place. His thumb traced slow, deliberate circles on my leg, the innocent touch simultaneously innocent and incendiary, setting my skin alight. Unless you want me to take you home, I should have said yes, should have insisted on returning to my cramped studio, with its broken door and the ghosts of a life half-lived. But the word that came out, a surprising, defiant whisper, was no. His smile was predatory, satisfied, a flash of white teeth in the dim interior. Good. We pulled up to a building that made my breath catch in awe. A towering structure of gleaming glass and cold steel, a masterpiece of modern architecture. The kind of place with a uniformed doorman, probably a state-of-the-art gym, and definitely a security detail that would scoff at the very idea of my existence. The penthouse lights glowed at the very top, a solitary, opulent beacon against the sprawling city night. Of course, he lived in the penthouse. Marco's SUV pulled up immediately behind us as Victor opened my door. A silent, efficient movement. The night air had grown colder, and I shivered in my inadequate coat, the thin fabric offering little protection. Lucian noticed immediately, shrugging off his impeccably tailored suit jacket and draping it over my shoulders. It smelled of him, a complex, intoxicating blend of cedar and expensive smoke, with an undertone of something darker, something I couldn't quite name but found utterly compelling. You'll freeze, I protested weakly, already succumbing to the comforting warmth of the luxurious fabric. I run hot. His hand found the small of my back again, a firm, guiding touch as he steered me toward the entrance. And I like seeing you in my clothes. The doorman, an older, distinguished man with kind, knowing eyes, held the heavy glass door open with a practiced, deferential smile. Good evening, Mr. Volkov. Evening, Richard. Lucian nodded curtly as we passed, his hand never leaving the curve of my back. The lobby was a cathedral of wealth. Polished marble floors gleamed under soft, recessed lighting, accented with discreet touches of gold. A security desk dominated one wall, where two men in sharp suits watched a bank of monitors with the same unwavering vigilance Marco always displayed. They straightened perceptibly when they saw Lucian, one of them speaking rapidly into a phone, his voice a low, urgent murmur. "They're clearing the elevator," Lucian explained, pressing the call button. "Standard protocol." "Why?" I asked, my voice hushed in the cavernous space. "Because I don't like surprises." The elevator doors opened immediately, revealing an interior of polished mirrors and gleaming brass, a silent, opulent cage. "And because the fewer people who see you with me, Emma, the safer you are." That chilling statement should have frightened me more than it did. Instead, I stepped into the elevator, watching our reflections multiply into an infinite tunnel of dark eyes and pale skin. Lucian pressed the button for the penthouse, marked with a key symbol, requiring a special code. He entered it without even looking, his fingers flying over the keypad. As soon as the doors closed, sealing us into the intimate, reflective space, he pulled me against him, his arms wrapping around my waist, his body a solid, unyielding heat. "I've been wanting to do this again since the restaurant," he murmured against my neck, his lips tracing the sensitive column of my throat, sending shivers down to my toes. "You taste like innocence and sin, Emma." My head fell back instinctively, giving him better access, exposing the fragile skin of my neck. "I'm not innocent," I whispered, the words a raw protest. "You are." His teeth grazed my pulse point, a feather-light touch that still made me gasp. "You have no idea what you've walked into, what I'm going to do to your carefully ordered life." "Maybe I want it disrupted," I countered, surprising even myself with the fierce defiance in my voice. He pulled back just enough to look at me, his dark eyes searching mine, probing. "Be careful what you wish for, Emma. I'm not the kind of man who does anything halfway." The elevator chimed softly, doors opening directly into his apartment. Calling it an apartment was like calling the ocean a puddle. It was a sprawling, breathtaking space, a sanctuary of modern luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased a panoramic view of the city lights, stretching to the horizon like a glittering tapestry. The furniture was sleek, modern, impossibly expensive, chosen by someone with impeccable taste and seemingly unlimited funds. Original artwork hung on the stark, pristine walls. I recognized a Rothko, or at least a very convincing forgery, its vibrant colors a stark contrast to the muted tones of the room. The kitchen was a masterpiece of marble and gleaming stainless steel, probably never used, a trophy room for culinary tools. But it was the smaller, more intimate details that truly caught my attention. A heavy book left open on the sleek coffee table, something in Russian, the Cyrillic script beautiful and utterly incomprehensible to me. A half-empty glass of amber whiskey on the minimalist bar, indicating a recent presence. And on the mantelpiece, a framed photograph, a woman who bore a striking resemblance to Lucian, the same dark, intense eyes, the same sharp, elegant features, holding a small boy with the same piercing gaze. "Your mother?" I asked, drawn irrevocably to the photograph, a sudden ache in my own chest. His expression shuddered immediately, a fleeting ripple of pain. She died when I was 12. "I'm sorry," I murmured, a genuine wave of empathy washing over me. "Don't be. She was." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully, weighing them before he spoke. "Complicated. Like you, she was too good for the world she was born into." Before I could ask what he meant, before I could unravel that intriguing, unsettling statement, His phone buzzed. Not the expensive, sleek one he'd used at the restaurant, but a second, plainer device, the one he'd checked in the parking garage. He glanced at the screen, and his entire demeanor shifted. A chilling, instantaneous transformation. The man who had just kissed me with such fierce hunger in the elevator vanished, replaced by someone cold, remote, and lethally dangerous. "I need to take this," he stated, his voice devoid of warmth, already moving toward a closed, unobtrusive door at the far end of the sprawling living room. "Make yourself comfortable. I'll only be a moment." Then he was gone, the door closing behind him with a soft, decisive click that echoed in the vast silence. I stood alone in the immense, silent space, Lucian's jacket still draped over my shoulders, feeling utterly, completely out of place, a fragile intruder in a gilded cage. Through the closed door, I could hear his voice, low, guttural, harsh, speaking in what sounded like rapid, angry Russian. The words were incomprehensible, a torrent of foreign syllables, but the tone was unmistakable. He was furious, dangerously so, a predator roused. I moved to the floor-to-ceiling windows, pressing my palm against the cool, smooth glass. Below, the city spread out like a glittering, endless carpet, millions of lights representing millions of lives, all of them blissfully oblivious to the strange, terrifying turn mine had taken. Just 2 days ago, my biggest concern had been whether old Mrs. Henderson would remember to leave a tip. Now I was standing in a penthouse that screamed illicit wealth, wearing a crime boss's jacket. Because that's what he had to be, right? The intense security, the veiled threats, the unspoken guns, the way powerful, wealthy people reacted to his mere presence, to his name. Lucian Volov. My hand, as if compelled by an unseen force, pulled out my cheap phone. My fingers hovered over the search bar. He'd asked me not to Google him, to not ask questions I didn't want answers to. But I needed to know. The hunger for knowledge, for understanding, was a desperate, burning ache within me. I typed his name, Lucian Volov, and hit search. The results loaded agonizingly slowly, my old phone struggling with the high-speed connection of his apartment. Then they appeared, flashing onto the small screen, and my blood ran cold, freezing in my veins. Lucian Volov, alleged head of the Volkov crime family. FBI investigates Volkov organization for racketeering, extortion, 3 dead in suspected. Mob hit. Sources whispered Volkov, but the grainy photo flashed across the screen solidified the truth. Lucian Volkov, notorious crime boss, at a charity gala. More images followed. Lucian, a polished enigma in bespoke suits, always at glittering events, always ringed by an invisible wall of security, his expression meticulously unreadable. Lucian exiting courthouses, his lawyer a somber shadow. Lucian at what appeared to be a graveside, his face a grim mask carved from granite. Then came the others, the visceral ones, bodies beneath stark white sheets, stark yellow crime scene tape crisscrossing the frame, the raw, contorted grief of families. My stomach clenched, bile rising. "I asked you not to do that." My voice was a choked gasp, a desperate plea for reality to reassert itself. I spun around, the room tilting. Lucian stood framed in the doorway of his office, phone still pressed to his ear. His dark eyes fixed on me, revealing nothing, everything. He'd rolled his sleeves up during the call, exposing more of the intricate tattoos snaking up his forearms. Designs I now understood were not mere decoration, but symbols steeped in the grim lore of his world. "Are they true?" My voice trembled, a fragile thing in the sudden silence. "The things they're saying. Some of them." He slid the phone into his pocket, a smooth, almost fluid motion that spoke of innate power. He moved toward me with a slow, predatory grace that had once thrilled me, but now felt terrifyingly real. "Not all. The media likes to embellish." "Did you kill those people?" The question was out before I could filter it, ragged with accusation and a primal fear. He stopped a few feet away, a respectful distance that felt, paradoxically, like a chasm. I should have appreciated the space, the illusion of safety it provided, but I didn't want it. Not now. Yes. The word was a blunt force, delivered with a simple, unadorned honesty that was far more chilling than any elaborate lie could have been. Why? I whispered, a hollow echo. Because they deserved it. Because they threatened my family, my business, my territory. His jaw tightened, a muscle jumping beneath his skin. Because in my world, mercy is weakness and weakness gets you killed. Your world. A choked, bitter laugh clawed its way out of my throat, broken and disbelieving. God, Lucian, you're a mobster, an actual crime boss, and I'm nobody. A waitress who can't even pay her rent on time. You're not nobody. He closed the remaining distance, his large hands reaching up to frame my face, his touch achingly gentle, a stark contradiction to the brutal admissions that still hung in the air. You're Emma. You're brave and fierce and so goddamn beautiful it hurts to look at you. You're the first real thing I've encountered in years. Tears burned behind my eyes, hot and insistent. I don't belong in this. I don't know how to be with someone who kills people. He finished the thought for me, his voice a low, rough rumble. Who runs an empire built on violence and fear, who has more blood on his hands than you can imagine. Yes, I whispered, the single syllable a ragged plea. Then leave. He dropped his hands, stepping back, putting that agonizing distance between us again. Walk out that door. I'll have Victor drive you home. You'll never see me again. It was the same offer he'd made at the restaurant, the same stark choice. And I still couldn't take it. Why me? The question burst out of me, desperate, illogical. You could have anyone. Why chase after some nobody waitress who yelled at you about a parking space? Something raw, vulnerable, flickered across his face. A fleeting glimpse of a different man. Because you looked at me like I was human. Not a monster, not a meal ticket, not a stepping stone. Just a man who'd annoyed you. He ran a hand through his perfectly styled dark hair, disrupting its immaculate lines. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How exhausting it is to be me. Everyone wants something. Money, power, protection, death. But you just wanted your parking space back. That's insane. Probably. He offered a humorless smile, a mere twitch of his lips. Most things about me are. But I can't change what I feel, Emma. And I felt more in the 2 days since meeting you than I have in years. What do you feel? My voice was barely a breath. He moved closer, slowly, deliberately, giving me every chance to retreat, to run. I didn't. His hands found my waist, strong and firm, pulling me against him until I could feel the solid heat of his body, the steady, insistent thrum of his heartbeat against my chest. Obsession. He murmured against my hair, the word a dark caress. Possession. The absolute certainty that you're mine, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to keep you safe and happy, even if that means protecting you from myself. That's not love. I never said it was love. His hands tightened on my waist, a gentle vice. I don't know if I'm capable of love, Emma, not in the way ordinary people understand it. But I know that the thought of you going back to that broken apartment, working yourself to exhaustion for scraps, being invisible to everyone around you, it makes me want to burn the world down. I should have been terrified. I should have recognized the profound danger in his words, in the fierce, absolute possessiveness of his grip. Instead, in that moment, something shifted within me. I tilted my face up to his, my eyes searching his. Show me. Show you what? His voice was a low growl, laced with confusion. What you feel. What you want. Show me why I should stay. Something dark and hungry, ancient and untamed, flashed deep within his eyes. Emma. Show me Lucian. He didn't need to be told again. His mouth claimed mine with a desperate, primal hunger that stole my breath, a whirlwind of need that drowned out thought. His hands roamed over my body, tracing every curve, every line, as if trying to memorize me, brand me, make me real. I kissed him back, just as desperately, my fingers tangling in his thick hair, pulling him closer, closer still. We stumbled backward toward the expensive couch, a tangle of limbs and desperate, unyielding passion. His tailored jacket slid from my shoulders, a forgotten thing. His hands, both reverent and urgent, found the zipper of my dress, sliding it down slowly, teasingly. Last chance. He breathed against my neck, his voice rough with emotion. Walk away, Emma. Save yourself. Instead, I pulled him down to me, abandoning myself to the precipice. What happened next was a blur of sensation, a symphony of touch and taste and scent. His hands on my skin, igniting a wildfire. My fingers tracing the complex, meaningful tattoos on his arms, feeling the hard muscle beneath. The solid weight of him above me, grounding me even as the world spun. The way he whispered my name, Emma, like a prayer and a curse all at once. He was gentle and fierce by turns, patiently guiding me one moment, desperately demanding the next, giving everything and taking more. And when it was over, when we lay tangled together on his opulent couch, my head resting on his chest, listening to the slow, steady rhythm of his heart, I knew there was no going back. I crossed a line I couldn't uncross, a boundary that no longer existed. Stay, he murmured into my hair, his arms tightening around me, possessive, protective. Not just tonight. Stay with me. I can't just move in with you, I protested weakly, the words tasting foreign on my tongue. I barely know you. Then get to know me. Let me get to know you. His fingers traced lazy patterns on my bare shoulder, sending shivers down my spine. I'll give you everything, Emma. Safety, comfort, a life where you never have to worry about rent or bills or working yourself to death just to survive. All I ask in return is you. That's not a fair trade, I whispered, even as my body melted against his. You're asking for everything. I'm offering everything too. He shifted, propping himself up on one elbow, looking down at me with an intensity that burned. I know this is fast. I know it's insane, but I've learned not to waste time when I find something I want. And I want you, Emma, more than I've wanted anything in my entire life. What if I can't handle your world? What if? Then I'll protect you from it. His thumb brushed softly across my lips, silencing my fears for a moment. I have enemies, Emma. Dangerous people who would hurt you without a second thought to get to me. But I also have power, resources, an entire organization dedicated to keeping what's mine safe. And you're mine now. Whether you live here or in that apartment with the broken door, you're mine. And I protect what's mine. The raw possessiveness in his voice should have sent a cold dread through me. Instead, it sent a strange, exhilarating thrill through my exhausted body, a primal sense of security. I need to think, I said finally, the words tasting like ash. This is too much, too fast. I need time to... My phone buzzed from somewhere in the tangle of discarded clothes on the floor, then buzzed again, and again. Lucian reached down, his movements economical, fishing my phone from my coat pocket and handing it to me with a raised eyebrow. The screen illuminated, showing a cascade of notifications. 12 missed calls from Sarah and 3 increasingly frantic texts. *M. Where are you? The diner was robbed tonight. Pete got hurt bad. Please tell me you weren't there. Please call me. My blood went cold. Oh God. What is it? Lucian sat up immediately, his entire demeanor shifting from tender lover to formidable boss in an instant. All business, his hand found my shoulder, a grounding weight. The diner. Someone robbed it. My manager? I was already scrambling for my clothes, my fingers shaking so badly I could barely manage the zipper of my dress. I need to go. I need to make sure Sarah's okay. And Pete. I'll take you. Lucian was already dressed, his movements efficient and swift. His previous intimacy shed like a discarded skin. He pressed a button on his own phone. Victor, bring the car around now. He gripped my shoulders, forcing me to meet his dark, unwavering gaze. You don't have to, Emma. But you're mine now. That means your problems are my problems. Your people are my people. Let me help. I nodded, unable to speak, the fear a solid knot clogging my throat. The ride to the diner was tense and silent. Marco's black SUV followed close behind, and through the rear window, I could see him speaking rapidly into his phone, his face grim. Lucian kept his hand in mine, his grip almost painful, his jaw tight, eyes fixed straight ahead. When we pulled up to Rosie's, a chaotic scene of flashing lights assaulted my vision. Police cruisers flanked the entrance, their strobes painting everything in stark red and blue. An ambulance was just pulling away, its sirens blessedly silent, but its lights still flashing a mournful farewell. I was out of the SUV before Victor had fully stopped, running toward the diner where Sarah stood, wrapped in a thin thermal blanket. Mascara streaked down her tear-stained face. "Em!" She grabbed me in a fierce, bone-crushing hug. "Oh, thank God. I thought maybe you'd been here." "That maybe." "I'm fine." "What happened? Is Pete?" "He's alive. They took him to St. Mary's. Got hit in the head pretty bad when he tried to stop them." She pulled back, wiping at her eyes with the back of her hand. "It was 3 guys, ski masks. They took the register and—" She stopped, her eyes going wide with sudden alarm as she looked over my shoulder. I turned to find Lucian standing there, Marco and 2 other silent, imposing men flanking him. All of them looked exactly what they were, dangerous. "Emma?" Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible, laced with a new kind of fear. Who is that?" Before I could answer, a police officer, a young man with a tired face, approached. "Miss, I need to get your statement if you—" He stopped dead in his tracks when his eyes landed on Lucian, his face draining of color. "Mr. Volkov, Officer Patterson." Lucian's voice was pleasant, controlled, but I heard the steel beneath, a cold, sharp edge. "You're going to find the men who did this tonight." It wasn't a request. It was a directive, an absolute command. Patterson swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. "Sir, we're doing everything we can, but—" "Tonight," Lucian repeated, taking a single, deliberate step closer, his presence expanding, dominating the space. "Ski masks, probably amateurs looking for quick cash. Check the pawn shops, the usual fences. And Patterson, when you find them, make sure they understand that this establishment is under my protection now. Anyone who touches it, anyone who threatens the people who work here answers to me. Understood?" "Yes, sir." Patterson was visibly sweating despite the cool night air. "Absolutely, Mr. Volkov." Lucian turned to me then, his expression softening, the hard lines of his face easing. "Is there anything else you need here?" I looked at Sarah, still trembling, at the glittering shards of broken glass on the diner floor, at the milling police officers, the flashing lights. My old life, the simple, safe one I had painstakingly built, was slowly, irrevocably crumbling around me. "No," I whispered, the word of farewell to my past. "Let's go." In the hushed sanctuary of the SUV, I finally let myself cry. For Pete, for Sarah, for the shattered illusion of safety I'd clung to with such fierce desperation. For the ordinary, uncomplicated life that had just become terrifyingly, impossibly complex. Lucian pulled me against him, his arms solid and warm and terrifyingly comforting, anchoring me in the swirling chaos. "They'll pay," he murmured into my hair, his voice a dark promise. "Anyone who hurt your people will pay. I promise you that." And God help me, in that moment, I believed him with every fiber of my being. I woke up in Lucian's bed, a massive, opulent thing with silk sheets and an absurd number of pillows, all of them smelling distinctively of cedar and expensive smoke. And him. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows I'd been too exhausted to close last night, painting the white walls in shifting hues of gold. My funeral dress, a crumpled casualty of the night, lay draped over a velvet chair. My broken heels sat neatly by the door, a poignant reminder of yesterday's unraveling. On the nightstand, my phone buzzed with messages I wasn't ready to read. A siren call from the life I'd left behind. Lucian wasn't beside me. I found him in the kitchen, a sleek, minimalist space of gleaming steel and marble. He wore dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, unbuttoned at the collar, his sleeves rolled up to reveal those intricate, storytelling tattoos. He was on the phone, the second one, always the second one, speaking rapid Russian into it while he expertly operated an espresso machine that probably cost more than my entire car. He looked up the moment I entered, his dark eyes tracking my slow movement across the room, assessing, observing. Without interrupting his conversation, he poured a second cup of coffee, added cream and 2 sugars without asking how I took it, because of course he'd noticed at the diner, and slid it across the marble counter toward me. I wrapped my hands around the warm mug, the heat seeping into my chilled fingers, listening to the guttural, unfamiliar language, wondering how my life had become this strange, surreal dream where mobsters made me perfect coffee in penthouse apartments. He ended the call abruptly, setting the phone down with a decisive click. "Good morning." "Morning." I took a tentative sip of the coffee. "Perfect." Of course, it was perfect. "Did you sleep?" "A few hours." He moved around the counter toward me, his hand finding my waist with the same possessive certainty he'd shown last night. "How are you feeling?" "Confused. Scared. Like I'm in someone else's life." I met his intense gaze. "Did they find them? The men who robbed the diner?" Something dark and utterly satisfied crossed his face, a flicker of brutal triumph. "They did. All 3 are currently explaining their mistake to some associates of mine." "What does that mean?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, though I already knew. "It means they won't be robbing anyone else. Ever." He said it so casually, as if discussing the weather. "And it means every criminal in this city now knows that Rosie's diner and everyone who works there is off limits. You're safe, Emma. Your friends are safe. Because you claimed us." The words tasted bitter in my mouth, like property, like a cage. "Because I protect what's mine." His grip tightened slightly on my waist, a gentle reminder of his power. "I won't apologize for that. I'm not asking you to." I set down my coffee, turning to face him fully, a fragile defiance hardening my resolve. "But I need to understand what I'm agreeing to here. If I stay, if I'm yours, like you keep saying, what does that actually mean?" He was quiet for a long moment, his intense dark eyes studying my face, delving into my very soul. Then he took my hand, his fingers warm and strong around mine, and led me to the living room, to the very couch where we'd tangled together just hours before. "It means you move in here," he said, pulling me down beside him, the cushions still soft from our presence. "It means you quit working at the diner. Or you keep working if that's important to you. But you never have to worry about money again. It means I give you everything you need, everything you've gone without since your mother died." "And what do you get?" I asked, my heart hammering against my ribs. "You," he said simply, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "Your time, your attention, your presence in my life. I want to come home to you, want to wake up beside you, want to know that in all the darkness and violence and chaos of my world, there's one pure thing waiting for me. I'm not pure, Lucian. I'm just ordinary. You're extraordinary." His thumb brushed across my knuckles, a small, tender gesture. "And yes, there are rules. You don't leave without security. You don't go anywhere I haven't cleared first. You don't speak to the police, to reporters, to anyone asking questions about me or my business. So I'd be a prisoner. You'd be protected." His jaw tightened, the steel returning to his eyes. "Emma, I have enemies. Real, dangerous people who would hurt you without hesitation if they knew you mattered to me. And you do matter more than is probably wise for either of us." "What if I can't do it?" I whispered, the enormity of his world suddenly crushing. "What if your world is too much for me? Then we figure it out together." He pulled me closer, until I was half in his lap, his arms wrapping around me, holding me as if he could physically keep the world at bay. "I'm not saying this will be easy, Emma, but I'm saying I'll do everything in my power to make you happy, to give you the life you deserve." My phone buzzed again, a frantic vibration against the marble. This time I looked at it. Sarah had sent 15 messages, each one more frantic than the last. The most recent simply said, "Please be okay. Love you." "I need to talk to Sarah," I said, my voice thick with guilt. "She's worried. Invite her here for lunch." Let her see that you're safe. He kissed my temple, his lips warm and comforting. And Emma, she's under my protection now, too. Her and Pete, and anyone else from that diner you care about, they won't be touched. Just like that. I marveled. A strange blend of awe and disbelief. You just decide people are under your protection? Just like that. He smiled slightly, a flash of something almost charming, almost playful. Benefits of being who I am. I texted Sarah back, a brief message assuring her I was fine, then invited her to lunch at an address that would probably make her eyes pop out of her head. Then I set the phone down and looked at Lucian. Really looked at him, seeing the layers of man and monster. I want conditions, I said, surprising myself with the sudden surge of courage. His eyebrow lifted. A dark, elegant arch. Conditions? If I'm staying, if I'm doing this insane thing, then I need some ground rules too. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. I want to keep working at the diner. Not every shift, but some. I need that normalcy, that connection to my old life. Done. Though you'll have security with you, always. I want to be able to see my friends without an audience. Security stays, but they'll be discreet. Non-negotiable, Emma. Your safety isn't up for debate. I nodded, accepting that. This was his world, after all. And I want honesty. If you're going to do something terrible, something violent, I don't need details, but I need to know. No secrets that could put me in danger. I can agree to that. His hand cupped my face, his thumb gently caressing my cheekbone. Anything else? Yeah. I met his gaze, holding it steadily. I want you to try to be more than what you were raised to be. I'm not asking you to stop being who you are. I'm not that naive. But I want you to try to be better. For me. Something vulnerable, profoundly human, flickered across his face, quickly masked but not entirely hidden. You're asking a lot. You're asking for everything? I countered, a ghost of a smile touching my lips. I think I'm entitled to ask for something back. He laughed then, a real laugh, warm and genuine. A sound I rarely heard, a sound that resonated deep within me. Fair enough. He pulled me fully into his lap, his arms wrapping around me, holding me tight. I'll try, Emma. I'll try to be the man you see when you look at me, instead of the monster everyone else sees. I see both, I admitted, pressing my forehead against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. That's what scares me. Good. You should be scared. It means you're smart. He pressed his forehead to mine, his voice a low rumble. But I swear to you, Emma, I will never hurt you. Never let anyone else hurt you. You're the one thing in this world I'll keep safe no matter what it costs me. That's a big promise. I don't make promises I can't keep. We sat there for a long time, tangled together on his expensive couch, the sprawling city a glittering tapestry beneath us. The future was uncertain, terrifying, and yet, somehow undeniably right. When Sarah arrived for lunch, escorted up by Victor because, of course, Lucian had sent a car for her, her eyes were huge, drinking in the vast penthouse, the breathtaking view, and the dangerous man who had so irrevocably claimed me. Holy shit, she whispered, her voice awestruck, when Lucian excused himself to take a call in his study. That's Lucian Volkov. The Lucian Volkov. What the hell are you doing? I don't know, I admitted, gripping her hands. Something stupid or something completely right. I haven't figured out which yet. I saw the worry etched on her face. He's dangerous. Like actually dangerous. I Googled him after last night. Emma, there are bodies. I know. I tightened my grip, anchoring myself to her normalcy. I know what he is. But Sarah, I've been sleepwalking through life for 3 years. Just existing, just surviving. And he makes me feel alive again. Is that worth the risk? I don't know. But I think I need to find out. She studied my face for a long moment, her eyes searching mine, then sighed, a sound of resignation and affection. You're glowing. I've never seen you glow before. It's terrifying and kind of beautiful. She pulled me into a fierce hug. Just promise me you'll be careful, and that you won't forget about us regular people down here in reality. Never, I promised, my voice thick with emotion. You're stuck with me. Lunch was surprisingly normal. Lucian ordered in from somewhere impossibly expensive, and he was charming with Sarah, carefully avoiding any hint of the darker, more brutal side I knew lurked beneath his polished surface. He asked about Pete's recovery, assured her the hospital bills would be covered, and mentioned casually that the diner's broken windows would be replaced by the end of the week. After Sarah left, after Victor had driven her back to her familiar world, I found myself standing at those massive windows again, looking out at the city. It felt both bigger and infinitely smaller than it had just 2 days ago. Lucian came up behind me, his arms wrapping around my waist, his chin resting on my shoulder, his presence a warm, solid anchor. "What are you thinking?" he murmured, his breath warm against my ear. "That my life was very small 2 days ago, and now it's terrifyingly large." I leaned back against him, letting his strength support me. "That I should be running as fast as I can. But I'm not." "Why aren't you?" "Because I'm tired of being invisible. And when you look at me, Lucian, I feel seen." I turned in his arms to face him, my hands resting on his chest. "That's probably not a good enough reason to upend my entire life for a mobster. But it's the truth. It's good enough for me." He kissed me then, softly, sweetly, without the desperate hunger of last night. This was a different kind of kiss, a promise, a beginning. "Welcome home, Emma." Home. The word settled into my chest, a complex blend of warmth and terror, and something that felt profoundly, irrevocably right. The next few weeks were a blur of adjustment. I moved my pathetic possessions into Lucian's penthouse. It took exactly 1 trip, which was both depressing and strangely freeing all at once. He converted one of his spare rooms into a bright, airy space just for me. A sanctuary where I could retreat when the enormity of his world became too much. I kept working at the diner 3 days a week, always with Victor or Marco nearby, shadows trying to be subtle, but undeniably present. The other servers grew accustomed to seeing expensive, dark SUVs parked outside. Customers whispered and stared, but no one bothered me. No one dared. Pete recovered slowly, and when he tried to thank me, his voice hoarse, for the mysteriously covered hospital bills, I had to pretend I didn't know exactly who had paid them. The diner installed a state-of-the-art security system. The entire neighborhood suddenly became safer, the usual troublemakers mysteriously leaving Rosie's, and the surrounding blocks alone. I learned Lucian's routines. The late-night calls he took in his soundproofed office, the meetings with dangerous men who showed him a deference bordering on fear, the way he'd come home sometimes with blood on his cuffs that we both pretended I didn't notice. He never brought his work home, never exposed me to the direct violence, but I knew. God, I knew. The shadow of his empire was always there. But I also learned softer things. That he read voraciously, mostly dense, philosophical Russian literature I couldn't pronounce. That his mother had been a gifted pianist, and he'd had her grand piano moved to the penthouse after she died, though he never played it. That he was terrified of thunderstorms, a fear he meticulously hid behind a facade of cold, iron control. And that he loved fiercely, protectively, with an intensity that sometimes overwhelmed me, a depth of emotion I hadn't known was possible. And I learned that I loved him back. It happened gradually, a slow seep, then all at once, a sudden, undeniable flood. The way he'd learned my coffee order without asking. The way he'd track me across rooms with his dark eyes, as if he couldn't quite believe I was real, or that I was truly there with him. The way he'd hold me at night, like I was the only thing anchoring him to humanity. The way he'd sit with me in silent solidarity while I cried on the anniversary of Mom's death. Not offering empty platitudes, but just being there. Solid, warm, undeniably present. 3 months after that night in the parking garage, I woke to find him watching me sleep, his dark eyes soft and unguarded in the gentle light of early morning. "What?" I murmured, still tangled in the remnants of sleep. "I love you." He said it simply, starkly, like stating an undeniable fact. "I know I shouldn't. I know it's dangerous for both of us, probably insane, but I do." My heart stuttered in my chest, a frantic bird. "Lucian, you don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know." He brushed a strand of hair from my face, his touch feather-light. You've changed everything, Emma. Made me want to be better. To build something beyond violence and fear. You make me human. I love you, too, I whispered, the words feeling both terrifying and utterly inevitable. I'm probably crazy, and this is definitely a disaster waiting to happen, but I love you. His smile was like sunrise, slow, beautiful, transforming his face, illuminating his eyes with a warmth I'd only ever glimpsed. Then I guess we're both crazy, probably. I pulled him down to me, kissing him softly, sweetly. But at least we're crazy together. 6 months later, Lucian took me back to that parking garage. The place where, it was here, in this gritty concrete shell, that everything had truly begun. This was the exact spot where I had been too utterly exhausted and furiously enraged to even register fear, where I had audaciously screamed at a known mobster over a trivial parking space, unknowingly stumbling into a life suddenly vibrantly worth living. I wanted to ask you here, he murmured, his voice a low rumble that cut through the cavernous silence of the garage, as he withdrew a small, velvet-covered box from the inner pocket of his finely tailored jacket. Right here, where you first claimed me, Emma, without ever realizing the power you wielded. My breath hitched, a fragile thing caught in my throat. Lucian? I began, the name a sweet ache on my tongue. I know this life isn't easy. I know the sheer audacity of it, the constant tightrope walk between safety and the wild, unpredictable normalcy. I gave up to be with you. But you, Emma? His gaze, usually so intense, softened into an almost unbearable tenderness. You've given me something I never dared to dream of possessing. Peace. A profound tranquility that stills the restless chaos within me. A purpose that transcends mere power, that reaches beyond the shadowy empire I command. He opened the box then, the click a sharp punctuation in the dim light, revealing a ring that caught the cold, unforgiving glare of the fluorescent tubes above, transforming their harshness into a cascade of scattered starlight. Marry me. Be mine, not just in spirit but officially, completely, undeniably. Let me spend the rest of my life protecting you from the darkness I inhabit, loving you with every brutal fiber of my being, and tirelessly trying to be worthy of the light you bring into my world. Every sensible thought I possessed, every warning bell that should have clanged with deafening urgency, the implications, the ever-present dangers, the sheer, unadulterated madness of tethering myself to the mob, they should have consumed me. I should have deliberated, calculated, hesitated. Instead, I found myself breathing out a single, resounding yes, because somewhere, in the impossibly vast chasm between the blinding fury in a grimy parking garage and the unexpected, soul-deep love discovered in a gilded penthouse, I had ceased merely surviving. I had begun to live, and if that new, exhilarating life came with a constant shadow of danger, a thrilling lick of darkness, and a man who was undeniably capable of terrible things but who looked at me as if I had personally woven the constellations into existence, well, I would choose it over my old, invisible existence any day of the week without a moment's regret. He slipped the ring onto my finger, the cool metal settling with a perfect, almost eerie fit, because, of course, Lucian, meticulous and ever prepared, would have already known my size. Then he kissed me, a fierce, primal claim that stole the air from my lungs and awakened a deep, hungry craving I had come to cherish. Around us, the parking garage remained stubbornly just that. A parking garage, a symphony of burnt rubber and stale coffee, punctuated by the hollow echo of our breaths. But for us, in that suspended moment, it was transformed into the sacred birthplace of something undeniably rare, exquisitely dangerous, and fiercely, irrevocably real. I love you, he murmured, his words a rough caress against my lips. My fierce, beautiful Emma, I love you, too, I whispered back, pressing closer to him. My own words a testament to the intoxicating hold he had on me. My terrifying, possessive mobster. He laughed then, a rich, full sound that bounced off the cold concrete walls, reverberating with a joyful, almost defiant power, shattering the mundane and infusing the sterile space with a magic that was uniquely ours. We went home, or rather, we went up to the penthouse that had once been his domain but was now unequivocally ours. to the extraordinary life we had meticulously, passionately built together, brick by brick, moment by moment, to the future that stretched ahead of us, an exhilarating tapestry woven with threads of uncertainty and danger, but most importantly, undeniably, wonderfully ours. And if, in quiet moments, I sometimes reflected upon the ghost of the girl I had been before, tired, apathetic, invisible, drowning slowly in an existence that barely qualified as living, I felt no sorrow for her passing. She had needed to die, a necessary sacrifice, so that I could be spectacularly reborn in fire and darkness, forged anew within the protective, unyielding arms of a man who would, without a second thought, burn the entire world to ashes if it meant keeping me safe. Ours was not a normal love story, by any stretch of the imagination, but it was ours. And in the grand, terrifying, beautiful scheme of things, that was more than enough.